Hello everyone, my name is Vidhan Pandya, and in this video, I'm going to discuss what next is going to happen in the life of Mr. Arvind Kejriwal. We know that he celebrated his birthday on 16th of August 2024. So I just wanted to give you my sense of what should be expected for Mr. Kejriwal. And as you may know, that he is the Chief Minister of Delhi, and he is currently in judicial custody for uh, liquor scam, and he's been questioned by Enforcement Directorate, and his case hearing is going on in the Raoul's Avenue Court in Delhi. So he recently celebrated his birthday on 16th of August. Today is 27th of August, 2024. So I just wanted to give you a read into what next to expect in the life of Mr. Arvind Kejriwal through the lens of Lal Kitab. Yes, we're going to use tools and techniques of Lal Kitab for doing this analysis. I'm going to use three levels of analysis for doing three levels. I'm going to talk about three different things, three different point of views through which we're going to see what events will happen in his life. So we are going to use the concept of 35-year cycle. We will also use Varshphal chart, Lal Kitab Varshphal, and we will also see the Varshphal dasha for him, right? So these are the three things. So let's dive in. So let's open the Saptarishis astrologers desk app. We all know the URL, so saptarishis.net. We go into celebrities section and then we look for his chart. You'll be able to find his chart here. One thing to note about his chart is the birth time is probably not accurate. We don't have his accurate birth time. So that's why I'm not using any dasha system for doing the predictions on his chart. I'm just going to use Lal Kitab because in the absence of accurate birth time, I think Lal Kitab is a good tool for us to predict what to expect in the life of the native. So here in this in the Saptarishis astrologers desk app, you will find a feature called as Lal Kitab dashboard, and this is the screen which you are looking at right now. Under Lal Kitab module, you will find Lal Kitab dashboard, and this gives you the birth chart and 35-year cycle below, and then you have Varshphal chart on the right, and then Varshphal dashas on the right as well. So let's first talk about what dasha is running. So you see the planet Mars is highlighted in blue, which means he's running the 35-year cycle of Mars. So he's running dasha of Mars. And the same can be seen here in the table below. He's running the dasha of Mars under 35-year cycle. We also call it Pati Sala chakra. Um, and then under Mars, if you click on the Mars, then you'll find that he is running dasha of Venus since Mars and Venus since 16th August 2023, and it will continue till 15th August 2025. So he is currently running Mahadasha of Mars and then Antardasha of Venus, like if you know Dasha and Antardasha concept. So let's talk about Mars in third house. So we know that he's running Dasha of Mars, so Mars is going to give results. Let's talk about what is the meaning of Mars in the third house. So Mars in the third house is called as caged lion or the lion in the zoo, right? Somebody who has a lot of knowledge, a lot of talent, but he's not able to utilize his talent because of lack of opportunities. Second important aspect about Mars in the third house is such native will have brothers or sisters, and that is also almost certain. Third thing about Mars in third house is that the person will look richer than he is. whether he has money or not, but he will always look richer. People always will feel that he has a lot of money. So those are like the tidbits of what Mars in the third house means. Now, remember third house is about the lion, right? It's the house of jungle, and Mars generally is compared to lion, and the third house is generally the house of jungle. So that's why it is um, case lion. And keep in mind the Mars is with Sun. Mars is with Sun. Sun is the planet of government. So right now he is in jail, which is a government cage, right? So and you probably can ask like, okay, why he was not in the jail since 2019, right? Because then the other factors also need to come into play. So there are other things that we need to analyze as well before we put somebody or make a prediction like why somebody has to go in the jail, right? Now this Mars is going to aspect the Rahu in the 11th house. We are going to use aspects of Lal Kitab. Lal Kitab, planets in third house will aspect the planet in 11th house, and it will also aspect the planet in the ninth house. That is the rule. So what we see here is Mars is aspecting Rahu in the 11th house. Now, Rahu stands for a lot of things. Among them, Rahu stands for addiction. Rahu stands for alcohol and alcoholism. Rahu also stands for or signifies people who are dealing or trading with alcohol. And I think in one of my articles, I've mentioned 11th house Rahu shows a strong link between Mr. Kejriwal and the South lobby, as they call it, right? So liquor lobby, the liquor firms, liquor companies, and um, his nexus is quite evident as we see here. The both Sun and Mars, they are both aspecting Rahu. So aspect on Rahu. So let's understand what is the meaning of Rahu in 11th house. 11th house is the source of income. Now, given that Rahu is alcohol, alcoholism, addiction, and related things. So his source of income is going to be the company of people who are dealing with alcohol or the alcohol itself, or alcoholism or anything to do with the addiction. So anything related to these areas will give him source of income. Now that's the that's where he gets into nexus with the South lobby, alcohol lobby, and then he modifies the rules of the law, and then he is now under investigation by the law enforcement authorities to see whether he has done any kind of a scam to give benefits to the liquor companies. Now, both Sun and the Mars are enemies of Rahu. So, if Mars is aspecting Rahu, it is making it weaker, which means Rahu is not going to give results easily. Rahu probably is putting him a lot of trouble. So Rahu in the 11th house is generally mentioned or called as a habitual criminal. Or again, as I said, Rahu in 11th house is indicating income through illegal or unfair means, right? Because Rahu does not know boundaries. Rahu just know addiction, and Rahu just know, and 11th house is also house of your um, friends, your social connections, and so on. So that's why he got connected to the liquor, the South lobby, and then that became the cause of his downfall. Right? So this is what we can see from the dasha of Mars. And then now let's talk about Venus. So Venus in the fourth house is generally called, it basically indicates illicit liaisons and love affairs. So here also illicit liaisons, right? So underhand dealings, and then love affairs. Love affairs means again dealing with females and having relationship with females, so relationships with females. And we know that one of the prominent name is one of the female um, owner of alcohol companies that are being investigated, right? So here we can, again, I don't want to talk much about the role of Venus here. Um, Jupiter in fourth is supposed to be exalted. It is supposed to give good results, but Jupiter is with Mercury. So Mercury is not a friend of Jupiter, and so is the case with Venus. So that's why Jupiter, even though it is exalted in Lal Kitab terms, in Lal Kitab parlance, but it is not going to give good results to Mr. Kejriwal, right? So this is what we can deduce from the 35-year dasha of uh, Mars, and under Mars, the dasha of Venus. Now let's come to the next part. So the next is we are going to discuss the Varshphal chart of Mr. Kejriwal. So on the right side of the screen, you will see this is the Varshphal chart for him, and the year his birthday was just started on 16th of August, and we can see that in this chart, in this Varshphal chart, Rahu is an ascendant. So there are multiple rules regarding Rahu in ascendant, but I'm going to touch upon like three important rules. So the first rule says when Rahu is in ascendant, thorn, first house is considered to be the seat. It is the thorn on which the king sits. It is the seat of power, right? It is the most important house as per the Lal Kitab. So the thorn or the seat starts shaking is the first rule that is given, or first uh, or the first sutra that is given in the Lal Kitab for Rahu in the first house. Second, it disturbs the mental peace and brings losses. So, so again, his mental peace, we know Mr. Kejriwal is going under a lot of stress because he's in jail. So his mental peace is being disturbed and it brings losses. He's obviously having losses. Losses does not have to be in terms of money, but it can be in terms of name, fame, loss of prestige, lot of power, loss of power, and so on. So he's facing losses because he is spending his time in the judicial custody, right? Now the third most important thing is, and this is the most important rule regarding Rahu in ascendant. Rahu in the first house eclipses sun and reduces the results of moon by half wherever sun and moon are seated. I repeat, if Rahu is in ascendant, it will eclipse the sun, which means sun is not going to give good results for that particular year. That is a very important rule. And sun, as we know, is the king. It is the kingdom. It is the government, and it is the government power. So that's why I say this is a very challenging position, and this could be the end of his chief ministership. But when this is going to happen, we'll have to look into the Varshphal Dashas, which we'll do next. It also reduces the power of moon. So just keep in mind that it not only impacts the sun, but it also impacts moon. Because when Rahu is in first house, Rahu is in full power. And what happens when Rahu is in full power? It will start impacting its enemies, which is sun and the moon. So it has a lot of impact on that. So now let's talk about sun. Now let's talk about Rahu, and then we see that sun and Mars. Sun is the king, the government, and the head of the state is in the sixth house. Sixth house is generally the house of fights, conflicts, right? So sun in the sixth house is not a good placement. Sun in the sixth house means you will have less help from the government and government machinery, or you will have a lot of challenges with help with government and government bodies, right? So that is one of the predictions that we can make out of this placement. And then Mars also is in the sixth house. Now, the sixth house Mars, again, it is in the house of fight, right? And it is also in the house of um, fight, agitation, and legal troubles, and so on, right? So here also Mars is losing its strength. And now we also need to keep in mind that the Sun and the Mars, they are in sixth, eighth position from each other. Sun and Mars are in the sixth house from the ascendant, where Rahu is seated. So that's why there is a connection of 6-8 between Rahu, Sun, and Mars. Now the result of this connection is all the three planets, they will try and destroy the other planets. So Rahu will destroy Sun. Rahu will create problems related to the significations of the Sun, and Rahu will also create uh, disturbance in the significations of Mars. So Sun, as we have already spoken, Sun is also your health, Sun is your prestige, Sun is also the government bodies, government agencies, and Mars is your blood relations. So you are going to so Mars in six means you will face a lot of enmity from your near and dear ones. You will face enmities from from the government. That is what we can see from Sun in sixth house and Mars in sixth house. Right? Now, Rahu will impact the significations of the Sun, and Rahu will also impact the signification of Mars. Now, Mars is your physical strength, right? Mars is also your ability to fight. Mars is your ability to get going even on the face of difficulty. So that fighting spirit is going to be impacted. He will not be able to fight, right? And then Sun is to do with the immunity, right? Sun is the immunity. Sun is the karaka of health. So that also will get impacted, right? So his health will be challenged because of Rahu. Rahu is also your Rahu is also your Rahu is poison. Rahu is anything to do with addiction. Rahu is anything to do with alcohol. So he has been saying that people are trying to um, poison me, right? So we can see that. I mean, if it happens, like if he gets into food poisoning and those kind of things, I mean that you cannot deny. I mean, there is a possibility it can happen, but again, this is what this combination is telling us. Now, another thing to know here is that we have Ketu, which is sitting in the 10th house. So there is a rule in Lal Kitab which says planet in 10th house will always fight with the planet in the 5th house, and it will always fight with the planet in the 6th house, which means Ketu will fight with planet in the 6th house, which is Sun and Mars. And then Ketu will also fight with Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus. So we have kind of seen the significations of Sun and Mars, so I'm not going to repeat it. But Ketu is going to also fight or disturb or destroy the significations of Mercury, which is your ability to speak, ability to talk, your nervous system. Jupiter is your prestige. Jupiter is your health. Jupiter is your wealth. Jupiter is the respect which you get from people. And then Venus is about luxuries. Venus is comforts in the life. Venus is your music, arts, and wife, among other things. Again, I'm not covering all the significations, but I'm covering the most important ones. And this is happening in the 5th house, right? So this Ketu will flank Jupiter. Mercury, Venus, Sun, and Mars. So it will impact these 5 planets. So during the time when Ketu dashas are active, we will see a negative impact on these 5 planets for sure. Right? Now let's talk about, so we have kind of seen like uh, results of Rahu, results of Ketu. Ketu in the 10th house by itself is not a good placement because Ketu indicates moksha and 10th house is your house of seat of power. It is the most important house for the chief minister or head of a state or head of the company because this is where you make all the important decisions, crucial decisions. And Ketu is about moksha. So, and 10th house, as we know, is the house of karma. So, Ketu in the 10th house, does it mean end of karma? Maybe. So this year probably is the year when Mr. Kejriwal either is forced to resign or there is also a possibility that the precedent law is imposed on the state of Delhi, which means the government does not function under the chief minister. So that can happen. Now, when this will happen, we will look into the Varshphal dashas, but we will get to it. But let me first cover the other 2 planets that are there in this Varshphal chart. So what we have is we also have Moon and Saturn, and Moon and Saturn are in the 3rd house. Now, Saturn in 3rd house is generally not considered good, but there is another rule in Lal Kitab which says Saturn is in the 3rd house and Ketu is also in 3rd house, or if Ketu is in 10th house, it's a good combination because it provides multiple houses to the native as long as, keep in mind, as long as he serves a dog or feed 3 elderly dogs. So the full rule is Saturn in 3rd house, Ketu in 3rd house or 10th house. It will provide multiple houses, multiple comforts, but the catch here is that the native, should serve or take care of a dog or feed 3 elderly dogs. If he does not do that, then the Ketu becomes malefic and it will destroy Saturn. So there is a catch. So unless you take care of a dog or 3 elderly dogs, this Ketu and Saturn, it's a it is not going to give any positive results. So this Ketu and Saturn results we have seen. Now there is another rule regarding the Saturn in the 3rd house. So that rule says that if Saturn conjoins an enemy in the 3rd house, it basically is a recipe of disaster. Right? So let me repeat. If Saturn is in the 3rd house and if Saturn is with enemy in the 3rd house, it causes total destruction, theft, or loss of wealth. So that rule also we need to keep in mind. Now here we see that Moon is also there with Saturn, and we know that Moon is an enemy of Saturn. So it probably indicates destruction, total destruction, and destruction of whom? Saturn, destruction related to Saturn. And now keep in mind this 3rd house is 6th from the 10th house. 6th from the 10th house of karma. 6th from the 10th house of office. 6th from 10th house of your post or position. Right? So that area is heavily impacted here. Before I forget, there is one more rule regarding the planets in the 5th house and the 6th house. So the rule says that any planet in the 5th house will always fight with the planet in the 6th house and the vice versa. So the sun, even though it is friend of Jupiter, it will destroy the significations of Jupiter. And same goes for Jupiter. So Jupiter, whenever Jupiter time will come, it will destroy the significations of sun and the significations of the Mars, even though Sun, Jupiter, and Sun, Mars, and Mars, Jupiter are friends, right? And the same thing is also true for Venus. So Venus, whenever Venus period comes, it will destroy the significations of Sun and Mars, because planets in the fifth house and sixth house will fight with each other. So, so that's how we have to interpret this Varshphal chart. Again, there are a lot of other rules also, but I think these are three most important rules that we need to keep in mind as we analyze the Varshphal chart of Arvind Kejriwal for this year. Now, to part three, right? Now we are going to see the Varshphal dashas. So the first Varshphal dasha is of Rahu and Ketu. It has started with his birth date in this year. So Rahu and Ketu period, as I said, Rahu and Ketu both are giving malefic results to him in terms of Rahu, mental peace. Rahu is fighting with Sun and Mars, which means health and the government and his position. And then Ketu is also impacting Sun, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus, right? So these planets, all the 5 planets here, are being impacted by this Rahu and Ketu. So this period, 16th of August through 27th of September, is going to be very challenging period for Mr. Kejriwal. He will get into lot of troubles. It could be related to health, and it could be related to government bodies, and it could be related to the judicial proceedings that are going on. So this is the time. This is one of the periods where I feel that he may have to resign from the chief ministership. Again, whether he does that or not is to be seen as we go into this year. Right? Today is just 27th. 10 days have only passed. 11 days have only passed after his birthday. So we'll have to see like how it goes and what issues he is facing, right? So all these things you have to see. Thereafter comes the period of Jupiter. So Jupiter, as I said, it is strong in the 5th house. It gives birth to child. The children will do well, but it is with enemies, and it is also getting flanked by Ketu. So Jupiter, even though it can do a lot of good, but looks like because it is under a lot of stress, because it is with 2 of the enemies, and also it is getting heat from the Ketu, and it is also getting beaten up by Sun and Mars. So even though it can do a lot of good, but looks like Jupiter also will take a hit here, which means even the period of Jupiter, which is between 27th of September 2024 and 29th of October 2024. Even in this period, Jupiter is also significator of health. So your Jupiter, Sun and Mars, they are the significator of the health in the Lal Kitab. They are related to the health. Again, Sun is your soul, Mars is your physical body, and then Jupiter is also your liver, your the powerhouse, and then how much energy you have, and so on and so forth. Right. And this is all happening in the 5th house and 6th house, which are again 5th house is the house of his stomach, and 6th house is your intestines. So all these planets are in 5th house, 6th house, and they are getting flanked by Rahu and Ketu. So I have a feeling either he will face problems with his health, or he will have challenges with the government and the judicial proceeding that are going on. Then comes the period of Sun. Again, I have spoken already that Sun is in 6-8 relationship with Rahu. So Rahu is your outcast, right? And then Rahu is sitting on the head. So and then so he will have challenges with people from other caste, right? And then he will be challenged, and he'll have to face some consequences or negative results because of this Rahu and Sun placement. And then thereafter, the time period of moon will come. So moon, since it is with Saturn, so moon is going to moon is in the third house, and third house is the house of travel. So this is the time when he will be his position or his jail may change, or he may have to travel somewhere. Again, I don't know what kind of possibilities will be open during that time, but third house moon is generally a sign of travel. Since moon is with Saturn, um, and we also know that moon destroys the Saturn in the third house. So we'll have to see how it goes. But again, not a very strong, not a very positive period, because moon also, um, yeah, moon per se is not so, it is not in a very bad position. But since it is with Saturn, probably it does not have that strength to do a lot of good. So probably this period is going to be like, probably is smooth sailing, uh, less trouble during this period. Then comes the period of Venus. So Venus is in the fifth house. Again, we know that Venus is getting flanked by Ketu, and Venus will also um, Venus is also getting flanked by Sun and the Mars. So Venus period is also going to be challenging for him. And now Venus is Venus in the fifth house is again, Venus is a good sober planet. It's a planet of luxury. It's a one of the benefic planets. So even though it is situated in the fifth house, probably it will not give that bad of results. But here also, it's not placed in its favorite houses for sure. So again, it probably will give moderate results, is what I see here. Then comes the period of Mars. And again, we spoke about Mars, and we know that Rahu is Rahu is situated in the first house, which is the house of Mars. So Mars is getting polluted by the poison of Rahu, and Mars is in the sixth house of health issues, right? And it is the house of and we know the relationship between six and the eighth, that is with Rahu and Mars. So again, period of Mars will be much more challenging for him. So period between February and March, these 2 months will be much more challenging for him, for Mr. Kejriwal. And thereafter, period of Mercury will come. Mercury again is in the fifth house, again uh, moderate malefic in the fifth house, and again it is probably going to be a much more moderate period. um, there is an exchange of Mercury and Sun. So Sun is actually the lord of fifth house, and Mercury is the lord of sixth house. There is an exchange, a relationship between fifth and sixth house. Now this probably reduces um, some of the struggles for Mr. Kejriwal to a certain extent, but at the same time, um, the other combinations which are present in his chart, which is like Ketu is flanking um, Mercury, so that still has a role to play. So again, period of struggle is there, but again, there is an exchange which is happening, but again, the exchange is between the fifth house and the sixth house. So exchanges with the brick houses are generally not welcome, and so is the case in this particular chart as well. And then Saturn period. So Saturn again, we've already seen Saturn in the third house is not generally very good. And then we have this combination of Saturn and Moon here, and then Saturn and Ketu are in 6th, 8th position as well. So we have already discussed like what are the implications of Saturn and Ketu in the third house and the 10th house already, right? So this is how I see overall. If you ask me, period of Rahu Ketu definitely will be challenging. Period of Mars is going to be challenging. These are like red hot um, challenging periods, and then followed by period of Sun. Sun to a lesser extent, but definitely Sun period also will be a lot of challenge. And then period of Saturn will be challenging as well. So overall, if you ask me, he will go through a lot in the upcoming year. I have a feeling that he will resign in one of these three periods, which I mentioned, uh, um, or either the president's rule will be imposed onto him. So this is my prediction. This is how I see uh, the next year for Mr. Arvind Kejriwal. Um, hope this uh, hope this makes sense to you. And thanks for watching the video. And if you have any questions, you can always put your questions in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Bye.